Well, hello everyone. This is Leanne Carmi. I'm here with Mason Tanner and Russell Decourt, and welcome to the mobile wrap-up webinar for Jumpstart. This is Module 11, and we're really excited to share this with you. Actually, presenting today is Russell, and Russell is going to be showing you a couple of really nice campaigns, which he says there's a lot of gold nuggets in there, and then a completed case study that we hope you can use in order to get profitable on mobile with your own campaigns. So Russell, take it away.
Hi guys, how's it going today? Hello Jim. I see that you're here in the audience first, so greetings to you. And I'm here with both Leanne and Mason, who I call the Mobile Masters. And I have some mobile case studies, so we have all the kind of mobile experts on one call, so should be really good. And we're going to share some case studies here with you. So as I go along, if you have any questions, just type them in the box there, and either Mason or Leanne can get to them, or they can stop me and ask me, and we'll go from there. This case study, you're going to see, and one of the things that I really like to do and that I've had success with personally, it doesn't mean that you will or won't, it doesn't mean that anybody else would, but the thing I like to do is target major brands. And if you've read any of my information in the forum, like my beginner's guide to running mobile offers, you'll notice that mobile games are one of the major niches I like to go into. They're very popular. People download them at a very high rate, and I happen to leverage a major brand, Candy Crush, which at the time I think was doing about 600,000 a day. I think since then they've actually broken the $1 million mark per day. I mean, have you guys heard anything different based on that, or is that about where they're at now?
I don't know.
They are Candy Crushing it, no doubt, at this point. So I'll just walk you through what I have, what I did, and kind of what my thinking process was. But yeah, I mean, they were up at 600,000 a day, and I read at some point that they did hit $1 million a day, probably from in-app downloads and extra turns and everything. It's actually a very addicting game. I've played it myself, but when I switched phones, it got rid of it, so don't have it anymore. So anyway, the offer was the Candy Crush Saga, and the offer type, of course, games and downloads. It was for multiple countries, but from my experience, when I was running games, I really like to do United States. It's just that I've ran a lot of traffic. I spent a lot of money in the United States, so I kind of understand what works. This comes from a lot of data, and the real gold here is that, because I spent the money, I got the information and I knew kind of where to start with Android, so it turned out really well. Now, the cost per install, or what I was getting per lead or conversion for this, was $1, and the cost per click was 5 cents. You'll notice a lot of times, with some of the networks that you start as high as 10 cents, but I started this one actually at 5 cents, and I got very high quality traffic. I noticed right away that leads were popping, so that's where I kept it, was at 5 cents, because the lower I pay for a click, and when I get my conversions, the less I have to make to be profitable. So that's the good part of it. What we have here is my carrier targeting. I was targeting AT&T and T-Mobile, and you may ask, well, I know that those are two of the big ones, but why didn't you target Sprint or Verizon or a million of the other networks for carriers? And the reason was, when I first started running mobile traffic, I didn't know anything about it, so I would run all of them. And I always noticed that my biggest losses, for whatever reason, were with Sprint and Verizon and some of the others. But when it came to gaming, I always had a good target demographic with AT&T and T-Mobile. So that's where I got that information. It didn't just come to me to do that. It took time, spent a lot of money, more than I'd like to admit, and that's what I came up with. So I targeted AT&T and T-Mobile, and once again, I targeted these manufacturers: Samsung, LG, Motorola, Huawei, HTC, and Pantech. And once again, you'd ask, how did you come up with those? Two reasons for that. Obviously, the first one, again, just like AT&T, T-Mobile, I ran a lot of traffic and found out with games that those manufacturers, were good. And then number two, I read somewhere about the Samsung thing that they were converting really well. One of my networks sent something out and said, if you're promoting Candy Crush, Samsung is just a juggernaut on that one for the smartphone. So, it was to me at that point, I was like, okay, I've heard this in two places now, so I'm going to go for it. At the time, the traffic type was push, and push is a little different, and it kind of crumbled rather quickly. I don't think you can get push traffic anywhere anymore. Can you, Leanne?
Yeah, push traffic, they kind of had to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, not so much anymore. But as far as I see you're using Clearlink, you were using Clearlink Media with AirPush, for example. That was
Yeah.
their thing. But yeah, they've adjusted since then. Just because I think there were a lot of complaints from people getting the push notifications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Google Play Store sort of banned those types of apps.
Yeah, the type of apps where you could do an in-tray notification to, and it was really, it was like the Wild West of mobile when you could run those. I knew a lot of guys were killing it with dating, so I said, I'll try it, with a game, and it really did work well. So it's just a sign of the times that you have to find something else. But it is what I used at the time. So and I think it was AirPush, come to think of it. And at the time I didn't want to give that out because it was still viable. That's why it just says push, because it could have been lead bold or it could have been tap it or anything else, but it was AirPush. Offer network, Clearlink Media. Wi-Fi, no, and I'm always a no, at least for USA with that. I lost a lot of money up front, running Wi-Fi with things, so I got rid of it. And then creative size, and Leanna Mason might disagree a little bit with me here, but with this one, I just ran the 320 by 50, and it happened to be gold. It doesn't always work that way. You need to diversify and run your 300 by 50, your 216 by 36 maybe. Gets much smaller than that, and I'm not so sure how viable it is, especially on a smartphone. So 320 by 50 is what I ran with. I never did go up to the interstitials or anything like that. I just kept it simple. I don't want to say I'm a lazy affiliate, but the easier it is, the easier it is. So,
Russell, just to answer that, if you want to go back to the previous screen. So here's the thing about mobile is that there's so many options, and because of your experience, because you've done a lot of tracking before, you kind of knew which carriers to choose. You kind of knew which creative size to go with. Someone starting out, they can go by that advice, but I think that it's best to do the tracking, to do the work. And yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money and you're going to lose money, but you're going to get insights on your niche, on your offers, the types of offers that you like to run. You're going to get a lot of insights that no one else has because it's going to be your tracking, your traffic, your money. And once you have that data, you can go to the next offer a little bit smarter, with a little less ignorance, I should say, and you can kind of limit things. The problem with mobile is because there's so many different things to target, that if you just have an all-out campaign, basically a run of network, if you will, just to one country or whatnot, you're gonna lose money. It's gonna take a lot longer to optimize. So by limiting yourself to one creative size and to maybe two carriers, you're giving yourself a chance to optimize those. Or you might find out that they don't work at all. But you're by limiting. I think it's not a bad thing to do. It just gives you a smaller portion to work with. And then let's say you get it profitable, it's running great. Well, you might start that next campaign on Sprint and see how it does, so. But yeah, so I just wanted to respond to that since you asked.
No, good point. Good point. That's true. And I did start kind of broad. I mean, because to say manufacturer targeting, and throw out 6 of these, there are a lot of handsets you're going to see here in a second. and that's rather broad, but you're going to see what happened after I kind of isolated my numbers and found out what was working too. So, you know, and Leanne talked about this with me, you know, a little bit before we started, and, you know, we've told everybody a lot about the MOBAF tracker, which will be in that here with the next case study. But the one I used at the time was M0b1l3 3.2, and I kind of still am partial to that one. Just understand that it does now cost $150 a month. It's self-hosted, so you have to be fairly technically savvy anyway, at least enough to, you know, have your domain, put it on there, you know, enable some things, have the right kind of hosting account, so on, so you can use the Ion Cube loader and so on and so forth. It's a bunch of technical stuff, but I prefer it. I like it. It's very neat. It's easy to use. So that, you know, I use M0b1l3 3.2, and then OfferFlow, which is, you know, basically how it works. You know, the offer itself, what people see in what order. I direct linked it. Once again, I'm not so sure that I was being lazy. I didn't use a lander, a custom lander per se. I know a lot of people like to grab leads, email addresses at least, so they can, you know, hit them with a back end offer. But for the purpose of this, I just direct linked it straight to Candy Crush's Google Play promotional URL. So they would go straight from my banners with my tracking on them, and it would go, you know, straight to the, you know, Google Play promotional URL. And of course, it was masked by my tracker, which at the time was M0b1l3, so it had a long thing with all the, you know, sub IDs and everything, so it could track it. Now, before I move to some of my screenshots of the you know, the results, Leanne, did you want to throw anything in before I move on to that about the offer flow or anything?
No, not really. I mean, with mobile, you know, with other traffic sources that we've talked about, like PPV and so on, we do recommend landing pages. With mobile, I don't know that it's necessary. I've seen it used for dating offers and things like that, but I don't know that it's necessary for apps. I think it's they're kind of self-explanatory, if you will. And if you're targeting properly and someone sees the banner, they pretty much know, and they click on it, they're going to go to the app store. So that's my thinking, but I'm wondering what Mason has to say about it as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, repeat the last part.
We're talking about the offer flow, Mason, and I was just saying that I don't think I don't think with mobile it's really necessary to have a lander. You know, I've seen it
No.
used in dating offers and things like that, but I think it's kind of self-explanatory from the banner usually.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a lander. I mean, it can help. I mean, there's no reason not to test one in some cases, but you don't. When you're testing an offer on mobile, I mean, I usually just direct link it, like she said, as long as the banner is, you know, somewhat targeted to the offer itself, and then you know, you'll get a lot of fat finger clicks too, that you know, people just, you know, accidentally click it and stuff like that. So you want to, those are the sort of placements you also want to eliminate. Placements to get a lot of clicks that might have a high CTR, but all those clicks are all just accidental because of the way that they place the ad on there. So you know, but usually if people see the ad and it's targeted to the landing page on mobile, especially, you know, you can normally test those offers without landers. But I mean, we did have some people in OfferMobi that were doing really well with some landing pages. So.
Yeah, it certainly can work, and I've done it with dating campaigns, and it certainly worked for the higher ones. You know, like when we had Zeusk and you know, some of the higher dollar ones that are, you know, $2 to $4 or $5, you know, per conversion. The landing page actually pretty much did it, pretty much sealed the deal. But when I, you know, when I had 5,000 leads with that 75-cent one, 5,000 plus leads actually with the cheaper one, I direct linked that one too, because, you know, it was a cheaper offer. So I guess for whatever reason that worked, you know, too. And kind of, you know, it was limited control wise. You know, Mason was talking about, you know, your targeting and stuff, and AirPush was rather limited. It wasn't like you could say, hey, don't give me these placements. Basically, you're at the mercy of, you know, this is what you're paying per click, and they're going to deliver it because it's push traffic. So you didn't have the same amount of granularity to pick, but this one just happened to take off, as you're about to see. I'm going to get out of this screen here for a minute and go to my page here. And this was kind of what happened based on the very broad, you know, the very broad targeting. And what you can see here is all black. It's all in the black. And this, what I did is I isolated my converting sub IDs, so I knew exactly what was working, you know, with the campaign. And the numbers really were quite amazing. I ran this, just to give you a little background, I ran it for like 5 days. And within the first, I mean, within those 5 days, I started out at like $50 a day. And then when I saw that it started to pop leads off, I was like, well, you know, I'll just throw 100 at it a day and see what happens. And the first couple of days, I lost like 40%. But this is the data. This is the gold that I mined out of it. And when we go to the bottom line, you'll see. But this just basically shows you for how many clicks, how many leads I got. You know, it tells you the conversion rate from those. And then the EPC, which, you know, normally for, you know, you'll see a lot of networks say nothing lower than a penny for EPCs. I've had offers that were absolutely killing it, where my EPCs were 8 cents. So this one, you know, it just did rather well. You can see what the ROI is, and this is what it costs for each one of these. I mean, for Samsung overall, I spent $2.20, and the profit loss is, you know, $44 in revenue, so profit's $41.80 just on Samsung. So, you know, that information that I had read, you know, was well leveraged to go that way. So this is the first page. And then I have this second page, which is just a continuation. You'll see Motorola right here, and you'll see it like this again. And then this is the bottom line right here, where you can see that there were 202 leads basically, or something around that. And that basically I spent $10.06, and the revenue was $202 from these. So after I did the optimization and found out what was working, these are what I came up with. And then these are the placements that or not placements, but the handsets that I targeted. You know, based on that information, is that how you guys do it too, Leanne and Mason? You know, basically just, you know, find out, you know, like what's working handset wise, because really, you know, profitability comes down to handsets, I think. So you just find what's working,
Yeah,
cut the rest.
that's a really big factor. You could actually probably only, you know, optimize based off handset alone, as long as you have the right carrier selected. Like he said, you know, some of those carriers, they're just always going to lose money, you know, especially for certain offers. So if you have, you know, one or two of the decent carriers in there, then it really comes down to handsets, and then after that, placements, I would say.
Yeah, if you have control over the placements, definitely.
If you've got 6 carriers and 4 of those in your campaign, like he said, he's just what I used to do too, and that's not a good way to go. Starting with all 6 or 7 carriers in one campaign,
Yeah.
because you really can't tell anything, because those handsets may be profitable on one carrier but not another. So if you have those bad carriers, it's going to skew the stats and make the offer look terrible when it's really just that carrier. So
Yeah, I agree completely.
you can put that in a pivot though. What, you know, the way I would break it down is have it broke down by carriers first, and then by handset second. So you could see, okay, on AT&T, here's our handset list. On Verizon, here's our handset list. So I'm not sure in this report right here, but I know in MOBAF Tracker, and even in Excel, if you were just using sub IDs or something, you can put that in like a what they call like a pivot table, where you can look at it at different levels. So you look at carrier, and then under the carrier, you look at the handsets for those carriers that are profitable, and that's your profitable traffic right there.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is, because right here you see AT&T, and then, you know.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see that at the top. Yep, so just like that, just like he's got it, that's the way to do it.
Yep, that's exactly what this was, AT&T, and then T-Mobile. And like I said, you know, it was just it happened to work, you know. And if you find a campaign like this, and you will find them where it just pops off, then that's the time when you spend the money, because, you know, if you put up 10 campaigns, you know, you may only get one like this, or you may get none. I mean, and then again, you may get 2 or 3. So that's just how this one ended. So to go back to my data, I just wanted to show you the real raw data that I pulled out of it, because it really was gold. To go back to this.
And Russell, as you're pulling that up, there's 2 really good questions in the queue.
Oh, sweet.
Sorry, I'm getting feedback from your computer, Russell.
From my computer?
Yeah, if you can put headset in or mute yourself. The first question is, have you or are you going to scale this now? And then there's a question about handsets, which I really like. Why or what drives handsets? It doesn't seem intuitive. So basically, why would one handset do better than another handset? So the question about scaling, did you scale this? Are you going to scale it now? And then, you know, why would a handset basically make a difference in the conversions?
Unmuted.
Oh, okay. You unmuted me. Okay. So basically, the first question, that's a question Steve asked me, and I'll tell you exactly what happened with this. It was really quite tragic. Like I said, ran it for 5 days. I had a media buying partner, and my media buying partner, and there's a lot of fraud issues going on, but my media buy partner is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was originally from New York City, and, you know, he was funding it with his American Express. And basically what happened is they said, wait a second. They said, red flag. They said, this is somebody with a Rio de Janeiro address's credit card, but their business is based in Hollywood, and their home address is in New York, and the person running it is coming from a Maryland. That was me. I lived in Baltimore at the time. And they're like, red flag. So they froze our account. They seized our account, basically. So it got to this point where I could crank it. I had already talked to him, and I said, hey, let's now that we have this information, let's crank it up. Let's go 250 a day instead of 100. And then, you know, if it still backs out, let's go 500, 1,000, and that's how you do it. So the answer is yes, that was the plan, to crank it up. But you know, they froze the account. We had to get hold of them. That took, you know, the better part of 3 days by the time we could get on a call with them. And then it was just, you know, you lose all that momentum, and you're just like, well, it's a good case study, but, you know, next type of thing. So that's the unfortunate answer to that. So I didn't get to really blow it up after that. Have you guys ever had that happen where you had some kind of a snafu with a network, or, you know, with a traffic network? Or I know you guys have ran a lot of, I mean, there's all sorts of things like that can happen to throw a crooks into your whole plan, right?
I mean, you know, things happen. I don't know that there's something specific like that. I've never had my accounts frozen or anything. I've had an ad network, you know, overspend on a campaign where, you know, I wanted to spend 100 a day and it spent 1,000 in one day and it wasn't converting. So, you know, stuff like that happens. And then you kind of like, well, that was my marketing budget for that campaign. Thank you very much. For the most part, I don't think things like this happen. It is kind of weird that you guys had all those countries and residences going on. And I think that if I were the network, I would probably freeze your account too. That's my personal thing. So.
It wasn't a big deal. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. We fixed it. So, you know, we ran other campaigns. It was just, you know, kind of a pain in the butt for it to happen, you know, right when you're getting ready to kill it. So that was the first answer. And then somebody, I think the other question was, how could it be that a handset can be the profitability factor? Is that what the question was?
Yeah, like how can why would a handset make a difference in conversions? Like, why would something convert better on one handset versus another?
Unmuted.
Well, that is a question to why the sky is blue, right? I mean, if
Yeah,
it's
I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things that whoever's using that particular handset, maybe it's a demographic thing based off of the price point of the handset. You know, different subgroups of people use iPhones versus, you know, some other types of phones and things like that. So part of it's a demographic issue based off the handset, and then also part of it has to do with, you know, how the page looks on the particular phone, how easy whatever service it is to use on the type of phone based off just the technical capabilities of the phone and the way that the landing page is displayed. So little things like that, you know, can affect conversions, obviously. And what you find though is just like with a keyword that, however, you know, once you have enough data to see how it's performing, you know, usually at least for a while until it burns out, that will be consistent. So if you can find those that when you get enough data on them to you know, make those sorts of decisions, it'll, you know, it'll be a consistent pattern a lot of the time. So you can that's what you know, that's why you can use it to optimize this, because once you identify those ones that are good, and then also you have to remember that the CPCs and things are different for the different handsets, because people in the ad networks can bid on handsets. So the ones that everybody's bidding for, you know, the price goes up. And so it may be that the CPCs, even though you can't bid at the handset level, that they do price them, and you will be paying different CPCs for different handsets. So sometimes you may find some handsets that convert that are 4 cents a click instead of 10 cents. As a, you know, like an iPhone maybe 10 cent, and you know, some other phone maybe 4 or 5 cents. So you know, that's if it, you know, that was the same price as the iPhone, it may not be profitable. So it has to do with CPCs as well on the networks.
Really good points. Thank you for that, Mason. One thing that I want to add to that is just a really niche example. I remember I was at a trade show one time, and I was actually, I don't even remember who I was there with. It might have been Wr4p or Human Demand or something. But the table right next to us was Sony, and they had their own cell phone, and it's a gamer cell phone. It had, you know, if you think about gaming consoles where they have the handsets like the PSP or the Nintendo DS, they had a phone whose main purpose was to play games. You know, they had the little buttons on there like a console a remote that you get. So, you know, if you target something like that with the right types of games for the person who gets that cell phone, they're probably going to convert. You know what I mean? It's but you send them somewhere else, they probably won't. So that's just a really niche example of that. But what Mason said is pretty much right. You know, certain people are going to get certain handsets because of the price, because of you know, there's, I don't know, because there's a special in Walmart versus a special at the Apple store. You know, it's just, it's buying behavior, and you don't necessarily know what it is, and you don't necessarily know even after you test and you find out what's profitable. You just know, hey, this particular handset's working great, I'm going to keep using it. And that's why we track.
Unmuted.
Yeah, yeah, those are awesome points that both Mason and Leanne make, and I mean that's exactly it. And you know, in hindsight, I was looking at this while they were talking too, looking at my own case study, and I never really noticed this, just how many of those Samsung heads or handsets were actually converting well. And I guess what I could have done and what I should have done is to take just Samsung and these handsets and took it over to a few places and did some test placements to see if I did this, if I'd get enough traffic. See, a lot of times what'll happen is if you start, you know, targeting down to one carrier, one or two carriers, you know, one handset manufacturer and this many handsets, you'll lose so much volume that you won't even be able, I mean, it might be profitable, but you're never really going to be able to do it unless you duplicate which is what a lot of them, you know, taught you to do back in the day is just, hey, duplicate that with different, with slightly different creatives, and duplicate it 5 to 10 times. And when I did like 5,000 leads, that's exactly what I did. I duplicated it 5 times over 2 traffic networks, and that's how I came up with all my volume. So sometimes that's what it takes. So I guess I should have taken, the Samsung and moved it over. But I just wanted to show you exactly what handsets, just to make that point, which ones were, converting. And then, and that was, kind of it. Onto this, kind of the resulting statistics of this, it says leads conversions 203, EPC $1, which is absolutely just smoking it when you put these handsets together, and a cost of $10.11 to run, $203. So basically, profit of $192.89, resulting in an ROI of 1,907.9%.
Russell, that is friggin' crazy. And I want to clarify, because we're looking at these stats and we're going, holy cow, but I think some people in the courts don't have that understanding of what all these mean. So I just want to kind of go through it. And obviously leads and conversions, the number of conversions that Russell had in the in the CPA network. EPC is earnings per click. So for every click that he was sending, he was earning $1. That's like an estimate. And if you can just imagine, let's say you were paying 10 cents a click for an iPhone or something. Well, for every 10 cents, he would make, $1.10. That's how crazy it was. So when you look at it, the cost versus revenue is ridiculous. I mean, really ridiculous. The profit, the return on investment, 1900% is, I can't believe you didn't start this back up, Russell. I mean, I would have borrowed, begged, stolen whatever funds I needed to run this campaign.
Steve said the same thing. Steve said the exact same thing. He's like, Russell, where's this campaign? Hey, can we load that back up into Site Scout? And I says, I don't think it would work, the same it did, with the push campaign. But yeah, that's what everybody said. But I'm just glad that I was able to get the results to be able to show them, So yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer that it ended the way it did. And then actually I went back and tried to run Candy Crush again, on both Wr4p and Clearlink again. And it never was the same again. When it was hot, it was hot. And when it cooled down, it was just this isn't even worth running anymore. So you really have to, that's the key here. You have to strike while the iron's hot. And if you ever get something going like this, it's like Leanne said, beg, borrow, steal, make it happen somehow. I mean, I guess maybe I just wasn't in a position that I was like, yeah, I need to make, $1 million in a month here or something like that. I mean, I guess I should have. Well, I mean, I don't know why not, but I just didn't. So that's what it is. So before we move on from this, any questions? Because I want to show, some of the other little campaigns we ran with Site Scout as well. Before we move on from this, anything?
There's a great question in the queue from Jim here, and he says, would you be able to take the data from this case study and apply it to another campaign in terms of the carrier, handset, etc., or is the investment just wasted? So I want to respond to that, and then I want to give Mason a chance to respond to it also. Basically, yes, you can take some of this data. There's other offers similar to Candy Crush, right? Candy Crush Saga. And if you grab similar offers, then, with the same targeting, whether it's Android or iPhone, depending on what you're running, yeah, you can grab some of those things like, the carriers, the handsets that tend to work, and you are more likely to get profitable faster. However, things are always changing, and that's why you always want to test. So is it wasted? No, because you get a lot of data that you'll see over the lifetime of various campaigns that you run. You start to see what works for what and why. Like Mason's got a lot of stuff in his head. If you ask him about a particular niche, for example, he'll know, hey, you should run this on this ad network, you should run this here, and it'll probably do well if you use this type of banner. How does and these carriers and these particular handsets, how does he know that? Because he's run so many campaigns that he's got a sense of it. Does he know everything without testing? Of course not. But starting out, yeah, you'll spend more money testing, and getting data like this, you can use it as part of your arsenal of, hey, I'm running an offer. This is kind of similar to Candy Crush. I'm going to try the same stuff starting out. And then when I want to expand, I'll test new things. I'll use 20% of my earnings to test some new things, but I'll start off with something that's more likely to convert. So it's not wasted, but you do have to test more when you have a new campaign. And I'm curious to hear what Mason's got to say about that.
Yeah, I would say one of the most important things is taking the same carriers to start with. I wouldn't necessarily take this campaign and take the same handsets that I had blacklisted from one network and